Solid Waste Authority, public hearing meeting for the management plan, Monday, August 27th, 2018, at 1 p.m., a little after. Could we have the invocation, Mr. Boaz, and I'll ask you to do that for us?
Everyone, please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for all your gifts. Thank you for the participation in the production of our waste management plan. Thank you for the hard work of the diligence of our technical advisory committee, and help us in our deliberations today and reviewing this plan. And we hope that it is pleasing in your eyes and in pleasing in the eyes of the residents of this county. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Carl, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I need to get an approval of the agenda, please.
So move.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Are there any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. The agenda has been approved. Thank you. Under new business, I'm going to ask, Tom? Tom wants to. I'm going to ask Mr. Garrett to give us an overview of the solid waste management plan, if you would, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to get Mike to go over some of the really detailed stuff in the plan, but obviously this is an update. Last time we did this was in 2015. You know, a large portion of this plan involves a whole lot of facts and figures and details and explanations of what the Solid Waste Authority does here and at the MRF and things like that. So a large portion of this just is updating all those facts, figures, population projections, and things like that. The committee, the Technical Advisory Committee, had members from the private sector, as well as members from the various municipalities, those folks that are involved in the municipal solid waste portion of their operations. You know, people like John Adair from Surfside and Kevin Blayton from North Myrtle Beach, Ed Marr from the city of Myrtle Beach. So we also had members from the school district and from Coastal Carolina University, because the last time around we realized that there can be a really big player in not just the educational part of things, but in their recycling and how they manage their waste, because they're obviously very big operations. And we did have some members from the waste industry. Tish Seeley from American Waste Systems, for example, was a member as well. And of course, the Solid Waste Authority hired consultants to help guide us through this process and gather all those facts and figures and try to pull it all together. But the critical parts of this really are the recommendations, and the discussions of that. Obviously, there's a huge issue now with the recycling, the problems with the issues with China are impacting everybody all around our country and in other countries as well, having a hard time getting rid of their recyclables. One respect, maybe that's a good thing if we can get industries here to start developing that capacity here in our country to reuse and recycle and turn those products, plastics and cardboard and things like that, into goods here rather than having to ship them halfway around the world. I think that could eventually be a good thing, but it's going to take a number of years to build that capacity here in our country. But Section 6 is the critical part. That's the goals, policies, and strategies, and the barriers to accomplishing some of those goals. And I think Mike has a better handle on some of the more detailed stuff since it involves operations here a lot. So Mike, if you want to come up and talk about some of these issues and how the plan's going to address those issues.
First, I really want to thank Tom and the committee and the people from the representatives from the cities that really participated in this thing. It's every 3-year process, and they do good discussions on it. It's really nice to see some third parties come together and create our plan for Horry County solid waste systems. As you can see in your agendas, we did, as Tom mentioned, we did the general updates, which was facts and figures and populations and tonnage numbers, and most of that information is coming from DHEC's Solid Waste Manual Annual Report, and a lot of that's put in there as well. Some of the things that we discussed that we put in the plan that we didn't do last time was no longer allowing plastic bags into yard waste. We've got a food waste scraps section now that we didn't have, and a new table showing banned items, whether those items are coming from the state. So items that's been our processing facility. We talked about our C&D processing facility we have here on site, and of course the landfill gas project that we just completed was talked and added in the plan. Of course, we talked about China and its impacts on the solid waste industry's recycling programs. As we all know, and attended several conferences last week about those impacts, that China's basically coming out of a player in the market anymore, and other countries are trying to step into that place along with manufacturers in the United States. So it's definitely having a large impact on those. Also in the plan, we added the municipal cities ordinances related to solid waste. We had never had those in our plan, so we did outlines of the municipal ordinances related to the ordinances within their cities as it relates to solid waste collection in their cities. And as Tom mentioned, we did do the Horry County Public Schools, put a section in for Horry County Public Schools and a section for the college in relating to the programs that they have going on, their recycling, and the Coastal Carolina, what they do, because they do a lot of recycling at football games and they got a good sustainability program going on out there. Then we added the local government oversight in more detail, and that's related to the 20-year plan and the funds associated and needed for that to manage the solid waste management plan over the 20-year life. That's in section 5 of the plan. Some things that the Solid Waste Technical Advisory Committee thought that we should do and look at is try to remove redundancies as it relates to strategies among different organizations to try to get a more core strategy together to handle recycling programs, and that was in there for us to look at. Processing and conversion technologies. It says an additional strategy was added into the plan relating to reviewing and researching all properties and existing permits to gain maximum life in the existing landfill. So they definitely want us to focus on maximizing the life of the landfill for as long as we possibly could and the property around it. The technical advisory discussed items on potential of creating some subcommittees for the next 3 years. Some people that would work on specific part of the board, the committee, that would have meetings to work on certain things, such as the DHEC subcommittee. One of the things they discussed was that Horry County, as you hear when you go throughout the state's got one of the best recycling programs and integrated solid waste management systems in the state. You hear that continuously wherever you go. But yet, when you look at our numbers related to the state, how much tourism we have in other areas, it doesn't really show that. So they wanted us to work with DHEC to try to make some impact on that. An organic subcommittee to try to get more food waste and other organics into the landfill and processing them. Wanted a committee to look at pay-as-you-throw. A subcommittee to focus on research and sharing information. and a municipal subcommittee assist in implementing strategies that need to be done for each jurisdiction. In other words, they wanted the cities to buy in a little closer this time, wanted them to be a part of it over the next 3 years, trying to implement these plans within their municipalities or local government. And then they also wanted a ban committee, recommended a ban committee that would look at banning additional products coming into the landfill to extend the life of the landfill. And that was the overall, just a lot of changes, but it was just a lot of writing, a lot of numbers put in, but those were the basics that were talked about in the major changes from our last plan in 2015 to this one in 2018. And remember that just as soon as we get this one done, give us about a year and a half break, and we started on the next one. So it's a continuing 3-year cycle. Any questions?
I got any questions? Yep.
Mike, on the Horry County Public School District in Coastal Carolina, does that include Horry Georgetown Technical College? Because they generate a lot of paper over there and a lot of other,
Yeah, we didn't bring anybody particular in because they don't have a sustainability coordinator. The school district had a sustainability coordinator, and so did the college, and we brought those 2 people in.
One quick question, Mike. The subcommittees, are they being pulled out of the TAC committee, or will these be new individuals that would serve on the subcommittees?
They'll be pulled out of the TAC committee.
Okay.
Mr. Garrigan and I, once his plan's approved, we'll get together and try to convince some people to sit on those committees, as many of them as we can. Try to pick out probably 1 or 2 top items that we'd like to jump on first, and then he'll ask people from that existing committee to sit, or TAC committee, to sit on these subcommittees. You know, if you're trying to get the municipalities to buy into the plan, you're going to be mostly municipal governments on that plan.
Well, I think it's a good idea, because that means people will be continuing working during the time frame. The goals just won't be sitting there. People will still be looking at them, trying to push these goals forward by working on these subcommittees. So that's a good strategy plan, in my view. Anything else for Mike? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have public input. I'd ask that you try to hold your remarks to about 5-6 minutes. Also, when you come to the podium, please sign. There's a form there. Please sign the form and state your name, please, for the record. Yep, you're up.
Okay, I think Mike took the form when he sat down, because it's not up here, but.
They took
But
your
I've
form?
I've already signed it, but somebody else might want to.
Yeah, just leave it up there.
Okay, I'm going to tell you to start with, my comments might go over 5 minutes.
Okay,
But whenever you tell me to stop, I'll stop, okay?
well, I'll sit you down.
I know you will, but I can, if you tell me to stop, I can can email them to you or whatever. But
Please state your name for us, please.
I'm Amelia Wood,
Thank you.
and at the last board meeting, I spoke to you and I emphasized the importance of the solid waste management plan. And in my opinion, it's the most important guidance document that you all have. And all the activities that the authority initiates should be consistent with what's written in the plan. The South Carolina legislature provided the pattern for the document with the Solid Waste Management Act of 1991 in order to make your decision-making activities a lot easier. There's no legislative requirement for revisions at certain time periods, but the Solid Waste Authority has decided to revise their plan every 3 years. In fact, any time that you decide you want to do something different, you can simply revise the plan. The main thing that needs to happen when you do this is you need to get the revisions approved, just like we're getting the plan approved right now, first of all by your board, then approved by the public in a public hearing such as this one, next by the municipalities, then county council, and finally the revisions should be submitted to DHEC before you move on with doing something different than what's in the plan. Okay, then everyone will know and it'll be less contentious. There'll be no need to invite special interest groups in prior to announcing your plan to the general public at a board meeting. The special interest groups should participate in creating the plan in the first place. The Technical Advisory Council should be a more diverse group, and they should discuss all aspects of planning for the authority and not simply recycling initiatives. I read every word of the transcripts of the most recent Technical Advisory Council meetings, and not one of those words mentioned the proposed piggyback Phase 3 and Phase 4 expansion plans. In fact, very little was mentioned about the MSW landfill at all. And the MSW landfill is the elephant that's always in the room here at the Solid Waste Authority and when discussing the Solid Waste Authority at all. In fact, the MSW landfill is the life-giving source for the Solid Waste Authority. Ordinance 16, excuse me, I got my pages out of order here. In the very last few minutes of the Technical Advisory Council meeting, Danny Knight vaguely alluded to the idea of wanting the support of the Technical Advisory Council to explore maximizing the use of the land at the current landfill site for expansion. Tom Garrigan told him to write up something and they'd look at it. There was no discussion. Page 6.5 of the plan contains the following words in section 6.3.3. The Technical Advisory Council recommends that the Solid Waste Authority review and research all the properties and existing permits to gain maximum life of the existing landfill location. The review and research should look at any space that's not under permit, as well as existing permits to see if any additional life can be added to the current landfill location. All future usage of closed areas such as mining or structured or engineered walls versus slopes that will give additional capacity to the landfill should also be reviewed. I wonder if all the members of the Technical Advisory Council remember approving this, and did they know what it meant? And reading the meeting minutes and watching the videos of past meetings, it appears that this recommendation was a little late. The activity had already been accomplished, and it was not in the 2015 plan. Danny Knight was asking them to recommend something that he'd already done. It had not been properly approved via the planning process before doing it. It also would have been proper for the Technical Advisory Council to hear all of what the special interest groups heard at the July 12th, 2018 meeting, and more importantly, what the Solid Waste Authority Board heard at the June 20th, 2018 workshop. The plan is not a historical document. The historical numbers in the plan are there simply to guide future planning. Here are a few examples of corrections that need to be made in the numbers published in the 2018 draft plan. And I will give y'all a copy of this. Page 1.1 says that you'll incorporate information through FY 2016. Why not 2017? Maybe even 2018, since we have those figures now. The 2018 figures might not be verified. Page 4.1, 4.17, 4.18, 4.19, and 4.21 need FY 2017 information. Page 4.14 the plan says that the annual disposal rate for the Class 3 MSW landfill is 450,000 tons per year. The SCDHEC FY 2017 annual report, where I got my figures, states that the annual disposal rate for Horry County SWA Class 3 landfill is 300,000 tons per year. Also, the report states that 268,000 tons were disposed of at the MSW landfill in FY 2017, and the plan reports approximately 273,350 tons were disposed. These figures need to be revised to reflect the most recently reported numbers. And I looked at the plan and I looked at the annual report back and forth to make sure I wasn't missing something. And then finally I called Julie Blaylock and talked to her again this morning to verify that the numbers that I have are correct. And so the numbers in the plan need to be changed to reflect the actual numbers there. Okay, on page 6.6, there's an item that's mentioned here as well as on other pages of the plan, and it's probably the most important thing that the Technical Advisory Council discussed. Okay, and that is They identified this item as an enormous problem, but they didn't offer any solutions. In section 635 of the plan, it says, the Solid Waste Authority could consider, this was a suggestion from the Technical Advisory Council, could consider setting tipping fees or identifying other funding sources that cover the cost of recycling and diversion programs in order to avoid the negative impact of funding programs that successfully reduce waste tonnages while simultaneously reducing corresponding tipping fee revenue, thereby hindering the ability to adequately fund diversion programs. Okay, basically what that's saying is that the Solid Waste Authority does not have a sustainable method of funding operations. Okay, it was also mentioned on page 1.4 and page 415 of the plan. In years past, there have been unsuccessful attempts to remedy this situation, such as the R.W. Beck study with a report issued by them in September of 2002. This study was done because Horry County Council was not satisfied with the idea that the Solid Waste Authority had for funding operations with a flat fee at the time. Looking back on it now, it's a good thing that the council members rejected the recommendation of the R.W. Beck study. Had they been followed, the authority would have been in worse financial shape today. But the flat fee that the Solid Waste Authority suggested in 2001 was not sustainable either. And also flow control is not a sustainable method of funding operations here. Many counties are using tipping fees and tax millage to fund solid waste management. And I think an examination of what others are doing and interviewing county solid waste staff members from around the state could lead to an analysis of more successful alternatives. I do not think we need any high-paid consultants to tell us this. A more successful funding method needs to be the focus of planning efforts. It may not be possible to incorporate it into this plan, but the planning efforts to incorporate it into the next plan should start right now. And if a better method is determined, it could be incorporated into a revision right away. It's not necessary to wait 3 years. A very important point on page 1.5 is that Section 4496-290F of the Solid Waste Management Act of 1991 states that no permit to construct a new solid waste management facility or to expand an existing solid waste management facility within a county or a municipality may be issued by SCDHEC unless, and I'm going to skip 1 and 2 and go to 3, the host jurisdiction and the jurisdiction generating solid waste destined for the proposed facility or expansion can demonstrate that they're actively involved in and have a strategy for meeting the statewide goal of waste reduction established in this chapter. How can the Solid Waste Authority demonstrate that they have a strategy for waste reduction when actually achieving that goal would leave the authority without needed revenue? The plan for obtaining revenue depends on more waste generation and not less. On page 2.1, there's another mention of the Act, and it says that one of its purposes is to encourage local governments to utilize all means reasonably available to promote efficient and proper methods of managing solid waste, which may include contracting with private entities to provide management services or operate management facilities on behalf of the local government when it is cost-effective to do so. On September 3rd, 1999, Waste Management made a proposal in response to an RFP to offer Horry County a 20-year contract similar to the one that they had with the City of Florence since 1994. The proposal provided for operating a transfer station and transporting municipal solid waste out of Horry County to a South Carolina DHEC-approved facility at a cost of $29.45 a ton. The question is, would that have been cost-effective? Would that have preserved valuable landfill airspace, providing security for the future and the needed incentive for the private company to keep the costs low? Should this be considered as an alternative to current landfill expansion plans in order to provide a more cost-effective way of disposing waste? Would this encourage waste reduction? Since the money would be going out instead of coming in, to lower costs, we would want to lower waste generation.
Ms. Woods, I really appreciate the information that you're giving, but if you could, in the next 2 or 3 minutes, kind of give us a wrap-up summary. We've been going about 15 minutes now.
Okay, I'm on page 4, and I have about 2 more pages.
Okay.
Would you like me to
Give
finish?
you about 3 more
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, thank you. Erie County Solid Waste Authority staff and board members have made disparaging remarks about the private waste industry in general and particular people associated with the private waste industry as recently as the last board meeting. It's clear from the South Carolina Solid Waste Management Act that the legislature of South Carolina supports the free enterprise system and that the solid waste industry has a role to play deserving respect and cooperation. According to the 2017 South Carolina Solid Waste Management Annual Report, the following counties dispose of these amounts of waste in Class 3 landfills. Charleston County disposes of 502,122 tons, but they only put 172,325 tons in their own landfill. They import or export the rest. Greenville County disposes of 499,412 tons, but they only put 180,666 tons in their own landfill. Spartanburg disposes of 466,756 tons, but they only put 134,030 tons in their own landfill. Erie County disposes of 273,072 tons, and 268,017 tons of that go in their own landfill. Only 9 counties in South Carolina have a publicly owned landfill. Every county in South Carolina disposes of some or all of their waste in private Class 3 landfills, including Erie County. Charleston, Greenville, and Spartanburg export the majority of their municipal solid waste to private landfills while preserving space in their own for special needs and future emergencies.
Okay. I
Okay,
think you're 3 minutes plus.
okay, well, I have a little bit
If you
more
have-
that I'd
if-
like
if
to
you have-
share.
Pardon?
I have a little bit more that I'd like to share. It's only 1:36.
Yeah, but usually we do a 5-minute span. You've been going about 50 minutes.
Well, I
mean, it's a
know,
lot- it's
I
a-
know, but there's
it's a-
nobody else here but me, and so
How much more do you have to go?
I'm on page 5.
And how many more pages do you have to go? I mean,
Well, 1.5 more besides page 5, so,
Yeah. Everyone sitting around this table here
yeah.
has got a significant education level and a comprehension level to match. I would encourage you to make copies and provide copies for us. and
Well,
we
how about if
we
I
can comprehend at our time. of
Okay.
convenience.
Yeah, talking to your mic,
Okay.
please, Carl.
Okay. Amelia, the people sitting around this table have got an education and comprehension level to match any college graduate you've ever been around in your life. Therefore, I would encourage you to make copies and distribute them to all of us. Thank you very much.
okay, I will, and I prefer to email it, so we'll save paper.
Okay, that'd be
Reduce
great.
waste.
If you would, just email it to Danny, and he'll have the staff make copies for us, and we'll review it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it.
If there's nothing else, we're on the adjournment, so. if there
Mr.
any-
Chairman, if
You
I
got
may.
some discussions that you want,
I
Bob?
would just like to commend the
Okay.
Technical Advisory Committee for the work that they've done,
Yeah.
especially the work of all of the members of the Technical Advisory Committee that worked on this process and prepared this report. A lot of diligence went into the preparation report and a lot of discussions that were really lively to hear, and I was really happy that we had those conversations. And would make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that having heard this, that we do take action on this, to send it forward in the current form that it's in.
So moved. Second.
It's been properly second that we move the management plan forward. Are there any other questions concerning it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it, and the motion is carried. I also would like to thank the TAC committee for doing what I consider adding strategies that will help the solid waste by adding these subcommittees. I think that's a really great plan. I also like the fact that you're getting the cities involved more, because now we have the whole county covered, not just Horry County. And I also like the fact that we got the university involved, because we did not have them involved last time. And I think they have a lot of information that they could add. So I really appreciate what you guys have done. Mike, I appreciate all the work that you have done, and I realize that. Amelia, I appreciate the work that you have done. Seems like we got a lot of reading to do. So if you will send us that, the information sounds very important. We will read through it and respond back to you. Anybody got anything else for the good of the cause? I'll take a motion for adjournment then.
So moved.
Been a problem. We'll adjourn.
Thank you.